Any questions, comments? Yes.
I would like to mention to you something what it's like being a parent of a gay child. We watched the opening scene of Milk, and I was with other mothers. It was so touching. It was just so painful for us to see men being arrested, and we knew that if our son had been born 40 years earlier, that would have happened to our children, and we just couldn't take it. And I know that it's because of men and women like you and Danny Drum that our sons have and daughters have what they have today. We're certainly not there yet, but I just wanted to thank you and everyone here on behalf of what you do. And I too work with other parents, and together we have to be united and fix this thing, because you people can't take it, but we as mothers, we can't take it either.
The Quilt earlier. During the months leading up to when I started the Quilt, I have to tell you, my heart was filled with hate and fear and despair. I felt such hatred of the straight world and such fear of what was going to happen to me. I assumed that I was going to die, and I really despaired that the world would ever respond. And I think the worst part of it for me was that so many of my friends were abandoned by their parents. Living in San Francisco at that time, our friends would die, and the parents would come in and they'd burn the body and sell the furniture and go back to wherever they were from. And through the Quilt, I really found myself in such close contact with all of the moms and dads who would never consider abandoning their child, and it reconnected me to the goodness that is out there. So has PFLAG organized a bus yet to Washington?
As far as I know, there's a whole unit, Northeast unit, that has these areas organized.
Wonderful.
I'm proud of living in New York for so many reasons, but in 1971, two Congress members of New York, Bella Abzug and Ed Koch, introduced the Equality Act, which would have expanded the Civil Rights Act to include sexual orientation. And now there's a small minority of people in the community who are pushing that. Oh, and it was dropped in 1996 by the big lobbyist organizations in Washington, D.C. to go towards incrementalism. And, there's a movement towards that. I would really hope that we hear more about that specifically at the march. And I've been doing reading on the 63 march with Martin Luther King. And what we in the gay community now call incrementalism, they were calling gradualism. And when they had the 63 march, one of the main themes is, if we keep going by gradualism, neither the young people nor the old people at this march will ever see equality in their lifetime.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm proud of the film Milk. I played a small part in making that film happen, and I think we did a good job. And I'm happy that people can understand, especially young people, about what happened in California in 1978. But for strategy, we need to be looking back to 1963. The documentary Eyes on the Prize has a wonderful section in it where Coretta Scott King talks about what John just referred to, abandoning the strategy of gradualism or incrementalism. And it was a bitter debate within the African American leadership then. Dr. King and Bayard Rustin, of course, the gay man who organized the March on Washington for Dr. King. Was he from Chelsea?
He's from Chelsea.
Were subjected to extreme criticism from both the left and the right. But it was a profound shift in strategy, and it made sense. And we all know that the struggle against racism is far from over, but we also know that discrimination on the basis of race is illegal in all 50 states. So I think that the parallels, and I'm very cautious, I don't there are substantial and important differences between the struggles of African American people and LGBT people. But strategically, we are inspired by what happened in 63, 64, and we believe that that shows us a roadmap for our movement today. We will have in place 435 congressional district action teams. We've already begun recruiting these people and training them. It's a loose network, but it's growing. I think it has the potential to be really powerful. In some districts, it will mean working in coalition with the national or statewide groups that are already in place doing that work, but in an appallingly high number of congressional districts, this will be the first attempt to make it clear, as we wish to make clear to every single member of the House of Representatives, that they all have LGBT people and allies within their district. They all have people in their districts who believe in equality and are willing to fight for it. And I think all of the, it can be very frustrating, and we are often frustrated with the willingness to procrastinate that we see so often among politicians in both the Democratic and the Republican Party. But it's also important to be realistic. When we push Barack Obama, we've also got to let him know that we've got his back. When we demand these things, we need to let them know that we're willing to do the hard, tedious, often boring work back in the district to show that we have this power and we have this determination. So the march is not the goal. The march is a launching pad for what we hope will be a new chapter in LGBT activism. Any other questions?
I just want to speak to getting more people into rooms like this and getting them to Washington. I live in Astoria, a nearby neighborhood also. I know probably a third of the people in this room just from marching and activism, et cetera, et cetera. And I find that sad. Before this went on, I invited several friends in the area, and I have, text and voicemails offering me food and sex afterwards, but that's not the point. What is the one thing you do, or you can tell people, or how, I just can't, I have better luck getting straight women going to rallies than I do gay men.
It's so frustrating.
That's what I'd like you to speak to. How do we get the ones that aren't here, how do we get them in the room and on the bus, or on the train, or in the car?
You look at our opposition. I was just in Dallas. Larry Kramer happened to be in Dallas at the same time. We spoke at the Pride Parade there, and then at the LGBT Chamber of Commerce dinner as well. And Larry, Larry's still going. But he said, we don't know how to fight back. We don't fight back. And, I've heard Larry speak many times. I love him dearly. And there was something about the way he said it, and I started thinking about it. And it brought back a really horrible memory of being beaten in high school and of not fighting back. I think that this is deep within us, a resistance to fighting back, a fear of fighting back. And it's not just the physical fear. There's something deeper there. I'm also keenly aware, every time I go to a rally, whatever the rally is, that then I go back to Castro Street if I'm living in San Francisco, or Santa Monica Boulevard if I'm in LA, or Chelsea, or, and I walk by the clubs, and they are filled to overflowing with people who are spending their money on alcohol. So this has always been a problem. Probably going to be a problem with this for a long time. To me, I think the most compelling argument is to really, try to grab people by the throat and say, do you not get the historic moment that is before us? And you can talk till you're blue in the face about all of the other stuff, but we're up against some really deep problems there. We're also kind of nasty to each other. There's still a lot of unnecessary cruelty and provisions within our own community. So the part I just keep hammering away, and I very much appreciate people showing up. This was done last minute, but the rallies I've been going to across the country, by the way, have been huge. People are very excited about it, especially the young people.